On the 30th of April 2024, the oldest world record in Trackmania Nations Forever was finally beaten. On the track A12 speed, the record had long stood at a 1061 by Heffest, but on this fateful day, the player Postagros blew it out of the water with an astonishing 1040. Such an accomplishment would usually be met with celebrations in the community, but not this time. You see, Posta had just discovered a way to take down the oldest and most legendary campaign record in just 6 precise button presses. This is the advent of low input strategy. Trackmania Nations Forever released 16 years ago, and across over a decade of fierce competition, the game has gone through many different eras. In the early days, competition on A12 speed was just like in every other racing game, solely about who could drive the best racing lines. But as players got better and better, they realized there were a lot of quirks in the Trackmania physics engine that they could take advantage of. And in 2010, a trick called the bug slide was discovered. Bug slides immediately took the game by storm. Since grass is a surface where the car doesn't have much grip, when players realized it's possible to jump and land 90 degrees sideways, drifting with a sharp angle and keeping full grip, it had massive implications. On any track where there was a tight grass turn, players would now bug slide as it saved a ton of time, and world record leaderboards on these tracks became unrecognizable. Players who used to have the world record with regular driving were understandably upset, but it also just seemed like the way the game would evolve. Once a new fast strategy was found, the older one would become obsolete. Similar to how MP3 players died when smartphones were invented. To keep up with the competition, you had to get with the times and learn the new way the game was played. The bug slide discovery also completely changed the meta on A12 speed. It was no longer about precise racing lines, but about who could get the best bug slide flick over the wall, landing down on the grass and skipping directly to the finish. And a further development on this strategy was found in 2013. When the Uber bug was discovered. Players found out that bug sliding into a wall really messes with the game's physics, and if you do this with enough speed while pitching the car slightly upwards, the car can sometimes gain a huge boost of speed upon crashing, launching it into the air. A12 just so happened to be the perfect track to make use of this bug on, as with enough attempts, players eventually began getting launched almost directly towards the finish line. The Uber bug was something the developers completely missed, but since it existed within the physics engine, the community decided that records with it should be allowed to go on the leaderboard. But not without controversy. Many were complaining that the Uber bug was unrealistic, and too far gone from the original racing premise. Others were completely fascinated with breaking the game and optimizing tracks far beyond what the developers ever could have foreseen. In the years following 2013, many players tried the Uber bug for hundreds of hours, and the record was brought down to 11.5 seconds. But in the start of 2019, the community was blown away when Heffest got this run. In the 5 years since this run, the world records on all other official campaign tracks in the game were improved. And it was long overdue when finally, in April of 2024, after around 80 hours of methodical hunting, Postagros finally beat the record, with a whopping 0.2 second margin. But as mentioned, this record was achieved in a very unusual way. Under normal circumstances, a player contesting for the world record on A12 will go out to the left for a start trick, followed by a quick right-left movement to maintain full grip, making for an optimal start downhill. Then they will use their game sense from thousands of hours to precisely set up the back wheel on the black border, and precisely time a drift so that the car both kicks slightly higher into the air and turns enough sideways to land in a bug slide at the checkpoint. Then once the car lifts into the air, players have to quickly react and do the best air control they can. In his world record run, Heffest realized in the middle of the flight he would overshoot the finish at full speed. So he adapted on the spot and did 3 short release taps, totaling 0.58 seconds spent not accelerating in the air. If Heffest could see the future and know beforehand that this exact Uber bug would happen, it's been shown he could have released at the very start of the flight for 0.35 seconds, making for a lower and faster flight path, and resulting in a 10.4 finishing time. Despite only being a 10-second speedrun, there's a lot of Trackmania mastery needed to execute each part precisely enough for a time as fast as that, and compared to Hellfest, Pasta's record was driven very differently. Pasta went straight forwards in the start, and did the downhill in just 2 inputs. One pressing right at 2.61 seconds, and releasing it again at 2.9 seconds, losing a chunk of time towards Hellfest. Then, as he approached the black border, he spent another input to hold left exactly when the back wheel touched the line, followed by a precisely timed air brake, and a mysterious final left tap just before he landed, after which all he had to do was hold the bug slide for a guaranteed world record. Pasta recorded his gameplay with an additional camera and documented all of his hours grinding to get the eventual run, and everyone knew that it was done legitimately. But that didn't make it any less controversial. What Pasta had discovered was a sequence of inputs that guaranteed him the world record with just 6 precise button presses, perfectly taking advantage of the fact that Trackmania's physics are deterministic. What that means is that the same inputs always produce the exact same result in-game. And if anyone watching this video play out these exact inputs on A12, you will get the exact same run as Pasta did, finishing at 1040. Now that might sound trivial, but 6 perfect button presses back to back in Trackmania is quite difficult. The game runs at a tick rate of 100, meaning it can receive an input every 100th of a second. And for the recipe to work, every button press has to be exact. If you change any of Pasta's inputs by just 100th of a second, the entire run breaks. The best players in Geometry Dash and other rhythm games can hit many 100th of a second input timings, but that is with both visual and audio cues helping you perfect the timing. In Trackmania, there is nothing that can assist you, and the game doesn't give you any feedback about whether you are rushing or dragging. To discover this string of A12 inputs, Pasta had used a tool called Trackmania Interface, which makes it possible to simulate runs by manually changing input values and having the tool perfectly play them out for you. With this tool, it is also possible, and most efficient, to brute force millions of possible input combinations, until the tool finds one that produces a fast time. After spending many hours researching such a strategy, what remains is tediously trying to execute that combination by hand. This means that instead of spending every attempt going for the Uber bug, most of your resets will be in the downhill if you miss either the press or release of a key in the first 3 seconds. Instead of using game sense and skill gathered from thousands of hours of Trackmania to get consistent Uber bug setups, you are now staring at the in-game timer and visual cues to get the exact button press that you need. And once you do Uber bug, rather than needing to quickly react to the car's flight path and make a split-second decision to full speed or release in order to get a perfect direct finish, you don't need to worry at all, because everything is pre-arranged and you already know the exact outcome of your Uber bug, which in Pasta's case was just holding the buttons at full speed and soaring into the finish at 1040 without breaking a sweat. Low input runs stand out from normal driving not only because the strategies used will be more primitive, but also because the number of button presses is so abnormal. And comparing Pasta's record with the other fastest keyboard times on A12, it's clear to see just how much of an outlier it is. Because of these differences, many top players wanted low input strategies to be banned from the main Trackmania leaderboards, which seems like a really harsh move. But it's far from obvious whether allowing it would actually be a good idea for keeping Trackmania's leaderboards fun and interesting. Instead of measuring who is the fastest driver, a leaderboard with low input records would just determine who is the best at timing button presses, which there already are plenty of other games that do, such as Geometry Dash and Dance Dance Revolution, but it has nothing to do with Trackmania mastery. Any knowledge of the car's handling and game physics are irrelevant. All that matters is being precise for a handful of arranged inputs, as a faster. The Trackmania community value the records atop the leaderboard so highly specifically because they are the crowning achievements of mastering the game. A technique that removes the need for any Trackmania specific skill also makes it impossible to find out through competition who the best player is. Perhaps the most concerning and boring thing of all is that once an optimal low input sequence is found, the best strategy for other players is to repeat that combination, and duplicate the time on the leaderboard, again and again and again, which would completely kill competition on those tracks. On the other side of the coin, banning a strategy that saves time would be unprecedented in Trackmania. The goal in the game is to get the fastest time possible, no matter which strategy you use, and at no point in the game's history has a strategy been banned for making it too trivial to get the best time. It's a crazy situation to be in as a community, with no clear answer as to what is the correct move. In the midst of many discussions, a vote was held between the top players, and although opinions differed there too, most voted in favor of it being considered a separate category. Shortly after, the leaderboard moderators made a decision to ban low-input strategy runs from being uploaded to the leaderboards, stating in a forum post that their decision was made both out of practicality and to preserve the integrity and competitive state of Trackmania Nations Forever, and that they're looking at adding a separate category leaderboard for low-input strategy runs at a later time. To someone outside Trackmania, this might seem like a wild decision, and I'd be interested to hear your opinions in the comments about what you think the moderator should have done. But there is one more thing to consider, namely cheating. Allowing low input strategy would open a whole can of worms of potential cheating that would have to be tackled in a good way. As it stands, suspicious looking inputs are the single most effective way to catch cheaters in Trackmania, and many have been caught this way in the past. But since all inputs in a successful low input run look exactly the same, it would be impossible to tell apart runs that were played by a macro or a script and those actually played by hand. This could partially be solved by hand cams being a requirement, but that would also drastically raise the bar of entry, which is one of the most beautiful things about Trackmania competition. That all you need to do is install the game and the competitive patch, and then you can drive your best replays and submit them to the leaderboard without any further ado. And besides, even with a hand cam, you could still receive help from a visual or audio tool that informed you when to press buttons. Using such a tool is already banned, but if you placed it on a monitor outside the field of view, cheating this way would be virtually undetectable. The only hope you could have of catching someone cheating that way would be due to their own stupidity. And as it turns out, shortly after Pasta's record, 2 new improvements were found to the low input strategy on A12. The player Axel, who at first staunchly opposed low input runs, got interested in grinding A12 with these new finds, and after some 30 hours, he beat Pasta's record, also uploading video footage with proof of him doing it legitimately. Considering how actively Axel had been against LIS, many found it weird that he suddenly wanted to play this way, and how quickly he was able to beat Pasta. And because of this, people started to dig. The handcam footage was extensively analyzed, and he was asked to provide a lot of additional proof. When asked for an unedited video of the session, he claimed it was deleted for hard drive space. And when asked for unblurred footage, he cited privacy as a reason. When asked why he didn't show his second monitor during the run, he claimed that he doesn't have one. And yet, if you zoom in, reflecting off the side of his gameplay monitor, you can clearly see a Google Chrome logo from the taskbar of a monitor that is out of frame. Nothing concrete could be proven yet, but a few weeks later, when Axel grinded and improved the record on the track again, that was the final straw for one of his friends, who had had enough of the lies and wanted to tell the truth to the community. The friend of Axel shared proof to moderators of him admitting to cheating in DMs, with a tool that would allow him to visualize exactly when to press the buttons, which he would have open on a second monitor. This is also how he is able to say, "Yes, I got it," before the car even lifts off.
I did it!
And also probably why his face is blurred, to not show that his face isn't looking at the gameplay screen at all. It sadly only took a few weeks for the first cheated low input runs to appear in the game, and if it had been done by someone who was more careful, this form of cheating is almost completely undetectable and impossible to manage for the moderators. The only way to moderate low input runs would be to sacrifice the accessibility of Trackmania competition, and the only upside would be slightly faster but duplicated records filling the leaderboards, which ultimately the moderators and community members deemed not worth it. In the months since April, many players have gotten closer to beating A12 without low input. The player Viun has put in well over 1,000 hours on only this track, and gotten many promising Uber bugs.
No!
And Pastagros is still doing low input runs, even though there is no leaderboard yet for him to submit the times on. And he recently beat the record on D11 Acrobatic, another official track, with a new 8 input run. There's likely still a few more tracks that he can optimize this way, and only time will tell where things go next. A few years ago, nobody would have thought it's possible to beat Heffa's A12 with such a low number of inputs, or even at all. But now, both of those things seem like they will happen, even if they aren't on the same leaderboard. Speaking as someone who actively competes in Trackmania, I personally am in favor of the ban, but I can also see some very strong arguments against the ban. So what do you think should be done? Do you think the leaderboard moderators made the right call? I'm looking forward to reading everyone's opinions in the comments. Please discuss further there. And thank you so much for watching this video till the end. And I appreciate the patience, as these do take a long time to put together. But expect another World Record documentary coming very soon. Until next time, have a good one.